When I was 17, I was in a biking accident that could have ended my life. And in those moments, everything that I thought mattered suddenly vanished. Things such as school, grades, achievements, career. And it was replaced with the utmost amount of clarity and things that have changed and shaped my life until this day. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Returning Home podcast, hosted by yours truly, Lindley. And in today's episode, I want to talk about my experience of being in a biking accident where I was confronted with death of my own life for the first time ever. And, hopefully until the day that I die, none of that would happen again. And so in today's episode, I want to share with you the things that moment in my life have taught me, the profound lessons that I gained from that, and how me facing death helped me to truly start living. Because sometimes it takes losing everything to finally awaken to the lies and the bubble and the things that you thought were important to your life, and to navigate your life with purpose and meaning and true fulfillment. So if that's something that you love to learn more about, then stay around. The day of my accident is something that I truly remember so vividly. And even though it is something that shaped my life so much, I don't think it's something that I've ever mentioned on my channel, which is why I felt, let's share it today because it is something that has been so crucial in my life and such a pivotal moment in my life that because it feels so long ago, it's something that I don't think about very often. But okay, so let's go to the day that it happened. So the day that it happened, imagine me being 17, so I was very much a teenager. I was with my family in Italy, in Lake Garda, and I wasn't with my parents, I was with uncles and other other family, aunties, uncles, cousins. And I remember that day, we just arrived and it was a very beautiful sunny morning. And on this day, my uncle wanted to go biking. So I thought, why not? Why not just do some exercise and then afterwards we can have lunch or whatever and we can enjoy the rest of our day, lay next to the beach or something like that. And so me and my uncle and my cousin, who was a couple years older than me, we were the part of the family that went cycling, and the other part of the family decided to walk up the hill. So we decided to bike to this point. I don't even remember what it was called, but I remember it was a horrendous way up. It was so hot, so sweaty. But I had very strong legs because I played hockey at the time. And so me, my uncle, and my cousin, we went cycling up in the morning, but imagine it being extremely warm already, those typical summer Italian days. And so we were biking up and we actually made it to the top. So when we decided to go down, I was a little scared already going down because there was quite some traffic that was driving down, and you had all these very steep turns, when you have those typical mountain roads. So going down, I was already a bit scared. So on the way down, I was going very slow. My cousin already went way past us and, on his own pace. And so it was me and my uncle. My uncle was in the front, and then there was me behind it. And on our way back, we just passed the other half of our family, and they were still walking upwards. And not much later, there was this turn, and I remember that it was such a sharp turn, and I was going pretty steep. And for some reason, I think it was because I was scared or I was just not sure how to use the biking steering wheel, I think it's called. And so in the turn, something happened, and I don't know what it was because it happened so quickly. In this turn, the steering wheel of my bike turned, and I basically fell I fell forward. So I fell into the steering wheel of the bike. And before I knew it, I remember having such a sharp pain in my upper leg, lower belly, kind of where your hip area would be. And I fell down and I was just sitting there. And in that moment, I heard the gardener that was next to the street screaming. And I just remember in that moment, like everything was still. And I don't know why, just even talking about this, it makes me emotional because it was such a profound moment in my life. Um, and so the gardener came running towards me. My uncle, who heard me scream so loud, apparently, I don't even remember that. My uncle, because I screamed so loudly, he put on the brakes, right? And he went forward. He fell forward and his pinky actually went he displaced his pinky. Is that what it's called? In his fall. And so I missed all of that. But so there was this gardener coming to me, kind of being paranoia. Then there was my uncle kind of running up to me. And I was sitting there facing hill upward on the street. And my uncle was immediately, something is really wrong because I looked into in where I have fallen and I saw this huge cut and in my hip area. And so my uncle immediately called to the family that we just passed and he said, "We fell. You need to come down right away." And in that moment, I didn't really recognize what was going on. I saw this, what seemed like a massive cut, but with my mindset, I thought, I'm just gonna need a couple stitches and then tomorrow I'll be laying next to the beach. I had no idea what was going on. And I think my body, which was the miracle, I think my body went into a state where I was just under so much adrenaline that I couldn't really feel pain, which was a blessing. So, what happened next was a series of events that I think were absolute miracles. So what happened? So I was sitting there next to the road, or on the road next to the road, on this mountain uh street or highway, and there was this man passing by that stopped and said, what happened? And apparently he worked as, I don't know what you call it, like someone working in an ambulance. So that was his job. So he knew immediately that we needed to call an ambulance and he knew how to stabilize me. Until that point, I hadn't moved. So I was sitting the way that I kind of fell. So I was sitting upward and I didn't move. And he was like, "Don't move. You got to stay in this position. And, I've got you handled." And he handed me a lot of tissues because apparently I was losing a lot of blood, which led me to the second point of the miracle is that I don't remember seeing any blood. And this is so interesting because afterwards, apparently, I lost 1.5 liters of my blood. And till this day, I don't remember seeing any blood. So that's kind of crazy to me. So what I find miraculous is that your body protects you from this trauma or whatever. So I got into the ambulance. It came, I think, 20 minutes after I fell, and it brought me to the closest hospital. And the third miracle that happened was when they did a scan. So all I remembered, first of all, when I arrived in the hospital, I just remember that the doctors were swearing. And because I had Italian family, I knew those words and I was like, okay, this is bad, right? And so they put me into a scan that could help see the blood flow in my body. And I remember coming out, and because it was an Italian, obviously it was in Italy, they didn't speak English very well. And so they told me that I had an angel on my shoulder and I had an angel on my shoulder. And they kept repeating that. And I was just laying there, not knowing what was going on, still not knowing what happened and how bad it actually was. And still, I was in under the illusion that, I be okay with a couple stitches and be on the beach the next day. And so apparently what had happened, and they could explain this to me after I had surgery, was that the artery, because this is what actually happened. So when I fell, the steering wheel or the handlebar, or what, I don't really know the word, the handlebar kind of pierced through all of the tissue in my body. So it went directly, it cut through tissue, muscle, and then it destroyed my artery that went towards my leg. The great thing, the miraculous thing of this was, number one, that the place where the artery was destroyed was actually the place that was just behind the split. So you have your main artery and then it splits into your leg. So it was just down the split that it went into my leg, which was still bad, but it was a miracle because if it was above that, then it would have, you know, I would have probably died immediately, straight away, because it's like the big artery. And the second thing that was a miracle is that for some reason, somehow, the artery that was almost cut in half. So imagine like this being the artery, there was just a tiny piece of the backside that was still intact. So it was completely open, completely damaged. But because the artery's structure is it's built in layers, and and those layers started to form a blood cloth. And because of that, it stopped the bleeding. So this was the third miracle. I think we're on the third one, right? Is that for some reason my body did something where it stopped bleeding. And so then the fourth miracle was when I actually woke up from surgery, and I could talk about this on and on and on because there's so much more to this story. But I don't want to make this episode too long. But after surgery, the doctors told me, and this was a massive shock to me, was that if I had moved, right? If that person didn't come by and told me that I couldn't move, if I had moved, I would have torn my artery completely and I would have bled to death right there. So that for a 17-year-old, and I think for any age, was a shock. Okay, I didn't really know how to process that. Another thing that he had said was because they waited so long for surgery because I needed to be replaced in a different hospital. It took 7 hours from when I fell until I actually went into surgery. They said if they had waited any longer to do surgery, then because the blood flow to my leg, you can imagine, because the artery was cut, the blood flow towards my leg was so minimal that they were close to amputating my entire leg if they had waited a bit longer. So I had to digest that information. And after my accident, I actually went into a phase where I went through a bit of PTSD because not necessarily because of what had happened, just the fact that I was faced with my mortality and I was faced with the fragility of my body, and that morning when I went for a bike, biking towards the top of the mountain, that just felt so normal, like a regular day, ended up in something so that I not expected, was just something that my mind couldn't comprehend. And also during my recovery, because I was with family, I just wanted to make sure that they were okay because they were definitely in shock. My parents weren't there, so my uncles and my aunties, they felt super responsible and they were like, "What the heck, you know?" Um, it was serious, and I was in the hospital for a long time, for 2 weeks or 10 days. And so that was a very intense time. And so I want to skip through this part and go towards the lessons that I think could really, really benefit you guys and help you guys on being more present, living life to the fullest, and getting your priorities in check. So, first of all, the first lesson that I had was we will all die. And I know that is not news to you. But I don't think it's something that we truly realize. It's not something that we think is gonna happen to us today. And we think that we have time. We think that that is something that happens in the future, or that is something that only happens to old people. The lesson that I got was you don't really know how long you have left, right? And the only guarantee that you have is that someday, one day, you will die. That's a guarantee that we all have in life. And so the question is, what do you want to do with your time? If you knew that you only had a short amount to live. And so perhaps if you have been scared, if you have felt like, you want to follow your heart, but you don't know how to do it, or you just feel like, oh, I don't know how life's going to go, or how I'm going to figure this out, or my finances, or whatever, follow your heart. What stops you? Because at the end of the day, is nothing that we take with us except of what we've done, what we've experienced, what moments filled our soul. So stop waiting to do the thing that you've always wanted to do because time moves fast and we don't have time. We don't have time. There's just time and what we do with it. But we don't own it. It's not something that we have. And we don't know how much of that time, we get to spend. Another thing, this was a massive thing in my life, was that I got my priorities straight. I was like, okay, if I could have died, or if I had one leg today, then first of all, if I had died, what are the things in my life that truly matter? What are the things that I truly value in life? And before my accident, I was valuing and struggling so much with living up to the status quo, to living up to the standard, the achievements, the exams, my grades, school, like teenager stuff. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that it was teenager stuff because today, in my current life or when I'm older, that's replaced with different stuff that you now worry about. So you know, I got to see that actually what matters most in my life are the experiences or the things that we take for granted. And I know this all sounds so cheesy, but it's true. Because the little things are those that matter. The little things like waking up to your spouse. That's what matters. But also what matters is looking at nature around you, seeing a bird, preparing his nest, or just experiencing the little things, taking a shower, having coffee in the morning, being able to even wake up to breathe. It's the little things in those little moments that we usually skip over because we're so focused on a future goal in our life that may or may not happen. But what if we just stopped chasing and see what's already around and how we value our relationships in our lives with ourselves and with others, right? So I started to see all that and I started to see that those are the things that actually matter. And those are the things that are actually important that I want to take more time for. Another thing that happened was because I think what this was the start of my spiritual awakening. I'm not saying that because I later on in life I went into depression and I've always seen that as the start. But I think without what happened to me, without being faced with death, I may not have followed my dreams when after going through depression and changed my life completely. So one thing that happened was that a big lesson was that now I matured much faster in life, and because I got my priorities straight, I started to look more into my health, and I started to value my health a lot more, and just time with family and things that I thought at that time that were important to me. Many of us are chasing something, whether it be more in a spiritual sense, you're chasing abundance, or you're chasing a certain manifestation, or you're chasing being enlightened and being at peace, or you're trying to heal fast or get through your wounds. And we're so focused on becoming something that we actually forget to be. And I think that that is the biggest lesson that I learned from this is life is happening now. It's not something that happens in the future. It's your happiness is not tied to a certain goal. It's not in a future version of you that you're striving to be. It's in living life and accepting life and embracing life fully in this moment right now. Because that's where life is. Life is in the present moment. And life can only be lived in the present moment. And so, if we could reflect on this, and something that I would love to invite you to take away from this episode, from this story, if you knew that you only had 1 week to live, what would you do? What would you maybe change? What would you start doing and stop doing, knowing that? And what would matter less to you? And what would matter more? And also, let me know in the comments. What is one thing that you treasure so much in your life right now that you maybe not mention enough? Just let me know in the comments. Let's share that with each other, and let's take a moment to pause and reflect and show each other what are those things that truly matter. So with that having said, I don't wish for any one of you, to have to go through facing death to finally start living and to wake up to life. But if this story can be a gentle reminder for you, then what has happened to me has had a bigger purpose, not only for me, but for the collective, for all of you who are watching and tuning in. To start living the life that you've been waiting to live. To stop waiting for permission and just give yourself your own permission slip. To do the thing that you've always wanted to do in your heart. You are alive, my friend, and that is the blessing. That is the miracle. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you have enjoyed this episode, please like this video. If you're tuning in from YouTube, like it, share it with anyone who you think could benefit from this message right now. Also, let me know in the comments where you guys are tuning in from, because I'd love to get to know you. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. I upload podcast episodes every other week. You can also tune in from Apple Podcast or Spotify. If you're tuning in from Apple Podcast or Spotify, be sure to give this episode a 5-star review and download this episode so that more people will start seeing this message. Also, check out my Lightworker merchandise if you want to wear conscious messages and share it with the world. Don't forget to showcase it. If you do so, I really appreciate you. And with that having said, this was truly it, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. Keep growing, keep being yourself, and share your light with the world. I'm looking forward to see you in the next video. Bye for now.